Hi guys, Yasas feta, which means hello and welcome in Greek to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I have a delicious chicken tray baked for you that has all of the flavors of chicken souvlaki with the french fries, but not the french fries. We're going to roast the potatoes, but then it also has a creamy layer of bechamel on top. It's delicious, it's comforting, and it's just perfect because you can make a small batch of this or a big batch like I'm making today. I actually doubled the recipe because when I was recipe testing, it was done by the evening. There was none left over for the next day, and I really like to make food that way. I like to make enough food so that there's leftovers the next day. We're a big family, and leftovers come in handy all the time. Let's get started. We're gonna begin with the potatoes. So I peeled about 6 potatoes because I am doubling the batch. On the recipe, it's gonna be a smaller batch. So if it looks like a whole lot to you, that's because, like I said, I doubled everything. So I peeled the potatoes, then go ahead and wash them really well and soak them in cold water. Then cut them in half, and then cut each half into about 1/2-inch slices, half moons. And put those in a baking tray, and it's time to season them. So season them with a little bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, oregano, some cumin powder, and then just mix everything all up. You could also throw some crushed red pepper flakes in there if you like heat. Mix it all up. Make sure to season them well. Each layer should be seasoned well so that way there's a lot of flavor. The oven should be preheated to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, and pop them in the middle rack for about 20 minutes just until they're fork tender. In the meantime, we're going to prepare everything else. So I'm using 2 onions again because I'm doubling the batch. So I'm going to finely chop them, and I'm going to chop the bell peppers as well. A lot of bell peppers go in this dish, just like it's just like basically all the flavors of souvlaki. Just chop the bell peppers into little cubes or dice them. And I'm using different color bell peppers here. Use whatever you have. Dice them and put everything in the bowl with the onions and set it aside. Now it's time to get the chicken ready. So today I'm using chicken breast, but you can definitely use boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And instead of pan frying them like I'm going to do right now, if you're using boneless, skinless chicken thighs, or even chicken thighs with the bone in, you can roast them. So that way you don't have to have splatter and do this in a few batches. It'll fit in a baking pan, and you can go ahead and roast it in the oven until it's done, about 25 minutes. They can kind of go in with the potatoes. You want to make sure that you cut the chicken into cubes that are almost the same size as the potatoes, so everything is just easy to eat. I like to season it with a little bit of salt, pepper, and cumin powder and set that aside. And now I have a cast iron skillet that's heating over medium-high heat. I'm going to add some olive oil to it, and now it's time to brown the chicken. I'm not going to cook it all the way through because chicken breast does dry out a lot if you overcook it. So we're going to cook it halfway on medium-high heat, about 2 to 3 minutes on each side, just until it gets a little bit of color. It's still going to look raw on the inside, and that's what you want, so that way it's not overcooked. Once the chicken is done, then go ahead and transfer it into the tray with the potatoes. The potatoes should have come out of the oven. If not, you can just transfer it into another bowl or something until you're ready to put it in the tray. Once the chicken is all out and browned, now it's time to cook the onions and the bell peppers. This is going to add so much sweetness and flavor. Go ahead and put the onions and the bell peppers together in the same pan that you pan fried the chicken with a little bit of olive oil, and season them with some salt, and you could add some pepper too if you want. You're going to cook them over medium-high heat for about 10 minutes or until they are nice and soft and golden. If you're making a lot like I am, it's going to take maybe about 15 minutes or so. Keep an eye on them. Stir them often so that way they do not burn. Once they're done, go ahead and add the bell peppers and onions to the tray with the chicken and the potatoes. And at this point, it's really nice to go in there and crumble some feta cheese, and if you have some Kalamata olives, and give everything a nice mix so everything is incorporated well. You can definitely add any vegetables you want to this tray bake. If you have any leftover roasted vegetables like broccoli or cauliflower or even mushrooms, if you have some sauteed mushrooms, it's a great place to put them in this tray bake. It's just the more the better in this recipe. Set it aside because now it's time to make the bechamel sauce that's going to go on top. So we're going to begin with a little bit of olive oil and all-purpose flour in a saucepan, and we're going to cook it over medium heat until it comes together and gets toasted, so you get all of that raw flour taste out. Halfway through, you want to grate a few garlic cloves in there. It's going to add a lot of flavor. Grate them in there and just let them cook with the flour and the oil. And then at this point, it's time to add the milk. I'm gonna add the milk in cold, so that way it can just blend nicely with the flour so you don't have any lumps. Whisk it all together until it's nice and smooth, and now it's time to season it. And I like to season with some salt, some black pepper, and a little bit of nutmeg. Ground nutmeg is very traditional. Give it a nice mix and continue to whisk it while it's cooking until it comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil or almost comes to a boil, it is going to thicken. If it seems a little bit too thick, you could definitely thin it out with a little bit more milk. You can do that, no problem. And then take it off of the heat and give it a taste and see if it needs more salt and pepper. And if it does, that's when you would add it. But then go ahead and add some grated or shredded Parmesan cheese and mix it all together. I also like to add some mozzarella. So I usually buy the blocks of mozzarella, and when I bring them home, I just cut them into slices and I put them in Ziploc bags or freezer safe bags, and then I freeze them until I'm ready to use them, because it's just less expensive than buying shredded cheese from the supermarket, and it doesn't have any stabilizers or anti-caking agents. It's just pure cheese that melts beautifully. I went ahead and I grated the mozzarella, and now I'm gonna put the mozzarella over the vegetables and the chicken, and I'm gonna pour the bechamel sauce on top. The oven temperature I've reduced to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm gonna bake this off until it's beautifully golden on top. That's gonna take anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. After 40 minutes, you can go ahead and turn on the broiler element so you can get a nice color if your oven hasn't already given the bechamel a beautiful color. Then take it out of the oven and let it set. You need it to sit at room temperature for about 30 minutes before you serve it, so everything can set and the bechamel can just thicken a little bit, and you'll be able to cut out portions if you're cutting out portions, or honestly, you could just scoop it out and put it in plates. I would serve this with a nice salad, some tzatziki. If you wanted to make an orzo pilaf, like an orzo and rice, lemon pilaf, that would be delicious too. But I feel like it has everything. It has your vegetables, it has potatoes, which is your starch, and the creamy sauce. Really all you need is a salad with this, and the meal is ready to be put on the table. So mine definitely needed to set more. You see it released a lot of liquid, and it was almost about to fall apart as I was slicing it out of the tray. But first one is always for the chef anyway. It's always gonna be a messy one. But definitely let it sit for an hour just to be safe. If you're making a smaller batch, it'll be ready in like 30, 35 minutes. Time to take a bite. So cheesy. The chicken is still juicy. The potatoes are perfectly cooked. That bechamel sauce is just so creamy and delicious. You guys are gonna definitely love this. The recipe, as always, is in the description box down below, as well as on dimitrasdishes.com. If you wanna learn how to make a perfect side for this, like the tzatziki, click right over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, us.